Here we're going to look at topic 7, example 2, apply an absolute value equation. The cruising speed of Kennedy's boat is 25 miles an hour. She plans to cruise at this speed for 80 miles, give or take 10 miles in each direction. Okay, so we know that the cruising speed is 25 miles per hour. We are going to cruise at the speed for 80 miles and give or take 10 miles in each direction. Okay. So part A, what equation models the number of hours x that Kennedy will travel? So we're going to have an absolute value equation here. The first thing we want to look at is how we would figure out the distance that Kennedy is going to travel. Well, we know that we're going 25 miles per hour, so that's going to be 25x, x being the number of hours, right? So actually, let's state that. So let's say let x equal hours. So 25x, and we're going to plans to cruise at the speed for 80 miles. So the amount of time that we're traveling, the distance that Kennedy is actually going to travel is 25x minus 80. And then we want the final distance, which can throw in some absolute values here. That has to be within 10 miles of that the 80 mile point, right? So give or take 10 miles. So the total distance that we're going to travel, again, kind of bear with me here, just kind of follow along. We're going to be more worried about solving this rather than exactly setting this up. But the absolute value would be of 25x minus 80, and all of that's going to be the distance that Kennedy travels, and the absolute value will be the distance from the 80 mile point, which we know has to be within 10. All right, and that's it for A. That's just what equation models the number of hours x that Kennedy will travel. Way more space than we need. In part B, what are the minimum number and maximum number of hours Kennedy will travel? Well, this is where we're going to take our absolute value equation, this 25x minus 80 equal 10, and we're actually going to solve it. So in this case, remember, we need to create two equations. The absolute value is already isolated, so I don't need to move anything around. I can create my equations. So 25x minus 80 equals 10, and 25x minus 80 equals negative 10. I'm going to add 80 to each side. 25x would be equal to 90. Divide by 25. So x is equal to 3.6. And do the same thing for our second equation. So it's going to be 70. Divide by 25. And x is equal to 2.8. So they're asking for the minimum number and maximum number of hours. The minimum is going to be the smaller value. That's the one that was equal to negative 10. So what we can say is that Kennedy will travel at least 2.8 hours, right? That's our minimum. And at most 3.6 hours. So again, make sure, even if you have trouble setting up the absolute value equation, which I will say is generally quite difficult, a lot of trouble setting up absolute value equations at times, but make sure we know how to solve them and interpret the information or interpret the solutions. What does that x value tell us? In this case, x was hours, and it gives us a minimum and maximum hours traveled.